strategies within India, and I think a lot of that will happen. It will be inbound. There is sufficient money for inbound, and there will be clients who understand the language of that firm globally because they provide that service in 30 or 40 countries. This will be the 41st or 31st country. They would be very happy to do that. And I think on the flip side, what will happen is a lot of the Indian law firms will pull up their socks and start to compete on one-on-one. And I'm hoping that they too will look outwards and give the foreigners a run for the money in the jurisdictions that they come from by giving better systems, by looking into and quickly hiring people to manage the firms well, run IT systems, and give it back in the same coin. And by the end of maybe a decade from now, we'll have very balanced, good Indian law firms working in the United Kingdom and the United States, and vice versa of these firms functioning out of India.
Anubhuti?
I think we're running out of time, but I'm just going to give a last few thoughts and comments more from an industry perspective. As Ran very rightly said, I will be looking at foreign law firms mostly for foreign law and foreign law advice, but it's also going to be for, not court, but arbitration work definitely. Most MNCs now have arbitration as the first port of call. I currently am handling 3 litigations, which are ICC arbitration, which law firms sitting in London are drafting the pleadings. Those pleadings will start getting drafted in India. It will still go to a London law firm to, actually do the physical filing, but it will happen here. And I do hope it would be much cheaper than what we are paying right now, because then we would just still go to London and not go to Freshfields in the Delhi office, for instance. The other thing that would happen is institutionalization. I'm not talking about from a management perspective of the firm, but from a client relationship. What happens today is one partner leaves, the file is not properly transitioned to the other partner, the client is paying double time because you're revisiting the whole relationship. I have to explain the business model again. Hopefully all of this would become much easier from a client perspective. Whatever said and done, international lawyers and law firms particularly invest in understanding the client business. Indian firms are doing it now, but that specialization, industry vertical specialization will start coming into India. We now have general corporate or an insurance or a defense, but we don't have micro specializations. Some of it will start happening in the Indian firms. Best practices will merge. The kind of documents we'll start seeing would not be started drafting on extremely buyer-friendly or seller-friendly, and you negotiate over 6 months to come in the middle point. You'll hopefully have more mature people. It's not going to be ego that I won a point here or I lost a point here. It's going to be market standards, market practices. And look at UK, look at Singapore, their LMA drafts, their market practices. FEMA is a law everyone who does corporate work deals with, but one firm to the other firm, one partner to the other partner in the same firm, one office to the other have different conflicting views. Hopefully some of this will change. Again, it'll just be time. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen, I think, but I just feel it's going to, and it's not going to, I don't think foreign firms and Indian firms would be diagonally opposite or they'll be on a war path. There would be integration, there would be learning, they would look to learn. The promoter relationships that some of you sitting in the room, some of the partners have, none of the foreign firms have that. So that is something that they would look to learn from here, and that, because India is culturally very different. So hopefully all of that would be more integration and not so much dispute between the parties.
So I think just a quick sort of last few words, and then maybe we'll move on to the general discussion because we've consumed a lot of time. But just looking at how the market has transitioned around the world. So 70s and 80s was when the market was opened up in the UK and in Europe at different points in time. The largest UK firm, my firm had a relationship with Alden Overy. They were about 200 lawyers before the market opened up. They are now about 4,000 lawyers around the world. Market opening up has allowed them to propel themselves into another league. Their revenues are significantly lower. Now they are called Magic Circle because their revenues are in excess of $1 billion a year. And so therefore what the market has done in the UK or in Europe is very different. It has created the international firm, the American firms over there set up, And even today, you will find angst amongst the UK magic circle saying that, oh, those American guys pay 1.5 or 2 times our salaries and all our associates go away, we train them and they get hired over there. But the magic circle still continue to be the magic circle and are still able to compete with the American firms over there. When you look at Europe, you'll see in most countries, the top 3 or 4 domestic firms, when the market opened, top 3, 4 have all disappeared. They've all become international firms. You have the next generation, so below that, the younger firms have learned from what is going on and have evolved, and today are the big names out there. So you would have a Hengeler Müller or a Gleitz Lutz, which are German firms that were very small before the market opened up. When you look at Northern Europe, the market is open, but the Nordic firms or the Northern European firms have very strong client relationships. The international firms have not been able to make so much of a headway over there. If you go further east, and if you look at, let's say you look at China and you look at Australia and you look at Singapore. Singapore is actually a trading hub. So it functions as a hub for the entire region. So it's probably not the right example to pick, but from Singapore, you now have an Allen and Gretel that actually functions at an international law firm in terms of service levels. So that's what it has done. They all face the pressure. So if you speak to Hengeler Müller, every year they have a conversation about whether they should actually become part of an international firm or remain domestic. They are the strongest German firm that exists today. When you look at China, probably not a right example in an Indian context because China didn't really have lawyers in that sense. I mean, the guys who knew the guys in the Communist Party were the better guys. So there was a bit of a head start that a lot of the international firms had in China, but many of them have shut shop in China because they've not been able to handle the culture in terms of how it operates. There are a few Chinese firms that have become very large and are now looking to become multinational. One of them has set up alliances across the UK and in Australia. If you look at the Australian market, it was always open, but only recently became more attractive to international firms. So one of them actually did a deal with a top-level Australian firm. Another one actually merged with an Australian firm fully. And Allen and Overy actually went and picked out of different firms and sort of took out and set up a new practice altogether. Having said that, there are still a bunch of Australian firms that are very effective and operational. So how liberalization has impacted each of these markets are very, very different. I would expect India to be very different. In none of the markets have the domestic firms been swept away. In none of these markets. If you take examples of each of these markets where the opening up has happened, the domestic firms have become cutting edge. May not be the big names that you see today, but there will be another set of names that will be over there. I mean, why should they just be the big names that you see today? So when you look at it from a political perspective, there is no country where this has changed. It is wrong to give the example of accounting firms because people often say, look at the accounting world. And look, all accounting firms, accountancy is a completely different profession. It sort of opens itself up for that kind of integration. But law firms are very, very different. People come to law firms not because they come to a machine, they come to people. In accounting firms, that is different. They come to a machine. My apologies to any accountants. But that's the way clients approach this. And so therefore, my expectation will be in the first 2 years when the market opens, you will have about 20 firms that come up. The Swiss variants will come in and have relationships. Almost everybody else in those 20 odd will actually set up small practices. They will hire partners and associates out of other firms. Indian firms will then be pressured into actually changing the manner in which they approach law. So you are less likely to have two views coming out of the same firm when the market opens and the Indian firms face that kind of pressure. In 5 years' time, depending upon how these first 20 do, the market will change. If they actually become profitable and the Indian clients start paying more money, this will change. There will be more practices that are set up in India. I mean, just coming to just in terms of, we are a very fee-sensitive market, and that is by and large what we are. But I know at least of one particular instance where there was a large corporate battle being fought between two brothers that I will not name, but one of them actually used an foreign firm, a set of lawyers based in Hong Kong, to do what they were doing. And so that is a pointer to what we need to do in terms of our services. This is a business that actually uses a lot of Indian lawyers. They still find the need in a crunch situation to actually go to a team that is based outside of India. And so that is a pointer to what we need to do in terms of the quality of our services. It is all well to say that we are all very good and equipped. Maybe not. Thanks, my fellow panelists, and probably get into a larger conversation. Norman, thanks for joining us.